Right now, it seems like it's cooled off in a lot of the country lately. So, what would your guidelines be on how often that we need to change out the nectar in the feeding and the feeders?
It's Look at it visually, get used to what it looks like. When you first mix nectar, 4 parts sugar, 1 part water, look at it, it has a crystal clear look. You give that about 3 days at 80 degrees, 85 degrees and above, it's not going to be so clear. It's going to start looking a little cloudy. Once the suet, or the, excuse me, the suet, the nectar gets to where it's visually cloudy, it's time to change it. I use the thing about every 3 days. So you don't necessarily have to fill your feeder up if it's a large feeder and low birds coming to it. Just put a little bit in it, but change it about every 3 days. Mix it up in a big batch. That makes it easy. Mixing's the hard part. Put it in a big batch, put it in an iced tea pitcher, put it in your refrigerator. You're good to go for a week or two if you don't have a lot of birds. Just come out, rinse your feeder really well, bleach it lightly. If it has any mold on it, rinse it out and just pour the nectar in there. So every 3 or 4 days, you can simply pour out the old nectar, rinse it real quick, put in the new nectar, and it makes it a lot easier and a lot quicker to change it and keep it fresh for the birds.
And how often, I mean, do you keep your hummingbird feeders out? Like, when do you start to bring them in? Like, we live here in Georgia, and so I'm not really sure when to bring the feeders in.
Never. Leave some out all year. You won't see as many birds in the wintertime, but there are birds in the west. Instead of moving down to Central America, they move into the southeast and sometimes the Mideast, and even as far north as New York, and spend the winter time. They're more successful in the southeast. We followed this trend for the last 20 years and watched and learned more about them. But there's a lot of birds that are western species that show up in Georgia and across the southeast as the winter approaches. And we see them a lot of times around December. They start getting prevalent here. And as early as September, October, we may pick up especially a rufous or two from the northwest. And they come here, they'll stay here. If you have a feeder out, they'll find it. You get to see them all winter, and you'll probably see them for a year or two as they continue to come back. But keep a feeder out all year. You don't have to keep out 5 or 6, but make sure there's one out there with some fresh nectar, and you don't have to change the nectar as often in the wintertime because it's kind of like a refrigerator outside. So it makes it easier. Keep it all in the feeder. The rest of them you can take down after the birds go away. Don't take them down until you don't see any birds anymore. Generally, that may be well down into September, early October.